each design or each rug did come from different directions, and then with the multiple drawings, it gave me, I disseminated out of that into a new design. But each one does have a feel to it. You know, the sundial, you know, was that play of what I've talked about, that repetition of an element. And of course, around in a circle, because that's around about time and closure. And then what came out of that was it became quite prehistoric in its feeling. And so it's got that historic reference of how we did time. Polaris, dramatic, exploding outwards, active, you know, layers through it. So that was the feeling of it, and that's how its colours came out too. You know, we developed the colours process. Wavelength, pretty obvious wavelength. You know, it's got waves on it, but those lines could have been multiple different ideas, but putting the curve in it just gave it a movement. And that's the other thing too, is to think about these rugs. A lot of times, they're not a graphic, they are a physical element that is going on a floor. And when things go from the vertical to horizontal, they change their persona, and you need to design like that as well. And the last one, Colored as Stone, which is one of my favorites, is really using that one element over and over and over, and seeing how it really moved around, gave it movement. I wanted to be able to put furniture anywhere around it, so it didn't have a predetermined code of furniture layout. And so that took a lot to do. It looks like an easy rug. It actually was the hardest rug out of all of them. My favorite rug design, I like them all of course, but the calendar stone, and I think I love that, is because it's one element repeated. It's that one lovely little soft teardrop shape, rolled out back and forth, aligning, misaligning, because it's drawn by hand and made like that. And I think it's done without computers because it gives it a softer touch. It gives it a human touch to the rug quality as well. And then just using the two simple colors, which are quite dramatic with colors of stone, creates this movement throughout the space. My design process for creating rugs is kind of, I don't really think of it probably as a design process. It's just a journey. Like a lot of times I spend a lot of time thinking about textures and materials and forms and shapes. And they're informed by furniture, it's informed by machinery and the negative spaces of machinery and the positive spaces. Even products I design influence what may be a rug texture or rug look. So I think then it's really about drawing. And I do a lot of drawings and to see where the pen takes it, where do I want to go and what comes out of it. And then after a number of iterations, you kind of get a pattern to think, yes, that could be interesting. And then the real proof is scale. And the scale of rugs, you're doing drawings, on A3 paper. And this is going to be ending up to be 3 meters in diameter. You need to understand that line is going to have a certain width and a certain strength to it in the space. So it's quite interesting, and it's always, you never get bored of the process. And when they come alive and when the samples come in, it is actually a real buzz. I think where I see these rugs, look, I'm a commercial designer, but I see them sitting at both commercial corporate fit out work, in high-end residential and hotel work. It's across those broad parameters. And also design is mixing across those parameters very much today. The forms, the shape, circular, inclusive, connective patterns are very much, are the vogue. You think about how they're being used, what spaces are they sitting in, what are these rugs going to bring? I think they're going to bring interest, they're going to bring conversation. It's a conversation piece. People say, well, why is that there? What is it about? There's a story to be told. The owner of the rug will always have a story, but different to probably my story. But that's theirs, which then makes them connect to that product. So then it's about connecting those spaces and the furniture together as an entity. Naming a collection is always a challenge. It's really interesting. You've done the work on design, we've developed the collection, we've got the materials and the finishes and the tones, but how do we collectively bring this together? The name Circadian was selected, and it was worked through really the designs about time. I always fascinated by time. I'm fascinated by the circularity of time from the beginning to the end, and the restart, rebirth, and the line work and repetition. So it does add a lot to the collection. It does tie it together, and that's how we came up with that name.